Hey, it's Brian here on Monday morning after a long night. So apologies for the bags under my eyes. I've hardly slept. It's been difficult. Um, I'm sure it's been difficult for a lot of the world just in terms of the things that I've been seeing. Um, in terms of, I've been trying to stay away from the news because what happened with Rob and Michelle, I don't want to know the details. I'm not, the second I start reading the news about it, then it's real, you know? So I'm in denial, but not in denial. Um, I have had the pleasure, the honor of being able to call Rob and Michele Reiner friends for, God, I guess going on about 22 years now, something like that. And I knew that after this tragedy happened, that everybody in the media, the local media anyway, here in the Bay Area, would be reaching out to me for some kind of a comment, some kind of a quote. Sure enough, I looked at my phone was blown up. TV stations and radio stations said, "Welcome to talk to me about my relationship with them and all of this stuff." And you know what? I just don't feel like doing that. I just really don't feel like talking. So I thought I would just, talk to you. I'll say what it is that I got to say. I'm sorry if it's rambling. As I said, I've had very, very little sleep, and I'm just a stream of consciousness. I'm going to tell you what it is that I'm thinking. But you won't see me giving any sound bites on television. You want to hear me? God, I had a radio station call me from Seattle. That wants, wanted to know if I would talk to him and give him some. No, I don't. I just don't want to do that. So I'll just tell you a couple of things. To start with, if you look at my post earlier on my thread, I'm just, I'm gutted. I mean, it's just one of those things that it just came out of the clear blue sky. I mean, just out of the clear blue sky. And I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and I'm trying to process it. I just talked to him last week. I just talked to Rob last week. And we talk to, or mostly text recently or email, like just every couple of weeks to say, "Hey, what's going on? How's it happening?" Because we're working on a project together. But I owe so much of my life and my career to Rob, to Michelle, and to Rob's father, Carl Reiner. If it weren't for Carl, I would be doing something entirely different. If it were not for Carl, my show, Not a Genuine Black Man, would not exist. It's all Carl Reiner. That's why that show exists. I will tell you briefly the story and how I came to have a relationship with that family. I was doing a Sunday morning show for KGO Radio in San Francisco, and I had been asked to moderate a talk back at the Osher Marin JCC. Carl had a new book that was coming out, and they were doing a big event. They wanted to know if I would sit and read the book and interview him in front of this audience. And I said, "Yeah, sure." And he's one of my comedy idols. And they said, "But you have him on your radio show." And I said, "Yeah, sure. Of course, you kidding? Of course." So I had him on the show, and at the time I was trying to figure out, I wanted to write a one-man play, had no idea what I was going to write about, no idea how to do it, how to go about it, nothing. So he comes on, we've never met, and we're talking writing on the air. We go to a commercial, and I tell him, yeah, I kind of got this, I want to do a play, but I don't know what to write about or how to do it. And he said that every writer, producer goes through this at some point in their career. And the way that you do this is that you find a piece of ground, the piece of ground that you alone stand on, that nobody else in the world does, and you write from there. And he explained to me how with him, it was his piece of ground he was a married comedy writer living in New Rochelle, writing a comedy show in New York for Sid Caesar. And that idea became the Dick Van Dyke Show. That was Carl's piece of ground. He goes, "You got to find yours." So a couple weeks go by, and again, if you know the story of Not a Genuine Black Man, or if you read the book, I got an anonymous letter saying that from somebody who was black saying I wasn't a genuine black man. I thought that's my piece of ground, and I wrote the play from there. So I write the play. We're about 2 weeks into it or 3 weeks into the run, and I decided to just do a video of it just so I had it kind of back as archival footage, something that someday I would show my grandchildren. Oh, somebody when I was young. So Carl's on the show again. Just coincidentally, I forget what it was for. And I said, by the way, I just wanted you to know, thank you for your advice. Your advice was so just great, about how to write this. And I wrote this play, and people seem to like it. I was selling, it was like 3 weeks in, I'm selling out every night. The critics were raving and everything. And I said, I owe that to you. Thank you. And he goes, well, have you got a recording of it? And I go, yeah, funny you mentioned that. Yeah, we recorded it last night. And he goes, send it to me. I want to see it. So I send it to him, and about 3 days go by, and I get a call at home from Carl Reiner. And he says, I just saw this, and it's amazing, and I want Robbie to see it. And I didn't know who he meant when he said Robbie. And then it clicked to me, he's talking about Rob Reiner, who's, again, one of my idols. All my life, as a little kid on Saturday nights, my family sat down together, the entire family, and watched all of the family. I watched it my whole life. Went from watching it there to Spinal Tap to, I love every picture that he's done. And so he goes, do you mind if I send it to Robbie? And I go, no, sure. So 3 days go by, and I get a call from his assistant at Castle Rock Entertainment saying that he wants to meet with me in Beverly Hills. So I'm thinking, this is like, pinch me. Is this real? So I go, I meet with him, I walk in, and he greets me like we're old friends, like we've known each other forever. And we go in his office, me and him and his partner, his producing partner at the time, Alan Greisman. And they start talking about how much they enjoyed the show. And then he starts pitching himself to me, about how he wants to do something with him, what I'd like to partner with him. And he told me this story he told me the story about, he did this movie called The Ghost of Mississippi, and it was about the murder of Medgar Evers. And how he was getting all this grief from Spike Lee because of the fact that he was a white director directing this picture. And Merle Evers, Medgar Evers' widow, was on Oprah with him talking about the movie. And she talked about how Medgar was very proud of the fact that he was able to vote. And in those days, she had to have him come back to him some kind of a document showing that you were legal to vote. And she pulls out this laminated voting thing and gives it to Rob. And what it is it was Medgar's voting thing, but it's smeared in blood because he was wearing it when he got shot. And so Rob has this sitting on his desk. He kept it always, to remember that there were people in the world who needed help, that there was injustice in the world. And it really meant a lot to him. So he kept this, Medgar Evers voting thing smeared in his blood. He kept it on his desk at Castle Rock. And he showed it to me. To kind of, I guess, to show me that I get it. I understand. I get it. And so immediately, of course, we started to work together. And that's kind of how, it's exactly how my relationship with him began. So we worked on it. We got it set up at HBO, and we got a series development deal set up at HBO. And the way I met Michele was during the time that we're developing this thing, I was doing the show in Los Angeles. And it was a theater called the Hayworth at the time, and I forget what it's called now. It's redone. And he brought Michele to the show. It was like the opening night or second night or something, and they had just remodeled it. And she had to go to the bathroom during the intermission, and there were still bugs. You know how it is after you get a remodel, things aren't working right like they should. And she goes to the bathroom, and the door slams. For some reason, the door slams and breaks her foot. So she comes back out, And rather than, we're leaving, we're going to the hospital, I just, nothing. She comes back, so obviously she was uncomfortable, and she sat through the entire second hour of that show and greeted me afterwards, said how much she liked it. Then Rob took her to the doctor, but that's how I met her. She had a broken foot, and she, but they were just so incredibly kind and so incredibly gracious, to me through all the years, Oh, something important. I forgot about this. So going back to this meeting at Castle Rock. So after the first meeting at Castle Rock, and we decide we're going to work together, and we shake hands. And I leave, and I get in a cab. This is before Uber. This is like 2004. And I'm riding back to my hotel, and my cell rings, and it's Carl. And Carl was in a limo on his way to the airport to go to Europe to shoot one of those like Ocean's 11 movies. And he goes, I just got a call from Robbie, and he's very taken with you. He really likes you, and he's very taken with you. And that was kind of like, and he goes, and Robbie's not taken with a lot of people, because he grew up in Hollywood. He knows, what's real and what's bullshit. And he was, but he's really, really taken with you. And that's kind of how our friendship began, and how I realized, wow, this is maybe beyond. And Rob's assistant, Pam, who was with him for 25 years, and typed every one of his scripts from screenplays from When Harry Met Sally all the way through The Bucket List. She ended up becoming one of my best friends, and is so to this day. My Topher Davis novels, she reads them first and gives me notes, because she knows how how a story goes. So there are many, many stories I could go on. I could sit here and tell you stories for a couple of hours, just about things or stories that he told me, and just about there's so much stuff that you're going to find out about him in the weeks to come. A lot of people don't know he was a writer on the Smothers Brothers show. Most people don't know that. That was one of his first big professional jobs. He wrote on Smothers Brothers. So did Steve Martin, wrote on the Smothers Brothers show. He told me that he started out, doing bit parts. We all got to know him on All in the Family, but it was doing bit parts that in Hollywood on episodic TV that he really started. And, all of this Nepo baby crap that you hear about, it is a lot of crap, and he had to deal with that. Because all it is, if you got a name of a famous person, your dad's famous, your mom's famous, all that does is get you the interview. All that does is get you in the door. If you suck and you can't get the job, guess what? You don't get the job if you can't do the job. So he went through that, and he worked his way up. He told me that in the 60s, anytime they needed a hippie for a part, he would get the job. He told me he did like the Beverly Hillbillies. He did. He said he sang "Blowing in the Wind" with Jim Nabors on Gomer Pyle. I found a picture about a month ago. I sent him a picture online of him in front of a bus, like in the 60s, in front of a bus with long hair and the beard, the whole thing, and like civilian clothes, and Sergeant Carter from Gomer Pyle yelling in his face. But he just had it going on, and he just had this. I'll tell you something interesting. Okay, so what happens is with Genuine originally we had it set up with HBO. Then management at HBO changed, and what happens generally when upper management at a network changes, anything the previous management dealt with is now radioactive, and they don't want anything to do with it. They want their own thing. So later on, we decided that we're going to give it another shot. We set it up again at Warner Brothers, and that's what we've been working on for the last couple of years, trying to get it together for them. And it was just amazing, just the fact that that we got each other so well. But there were parts of it, like I wrote a draft, and then he would go through and give me notes in the draft, and I would go back and I'd rewrite. And there were things that are different in the play that he wanted to change around, and I was a little bit kind of, and then it was kind of like, well, but this is Rob Reiner. I shouldn't. But so what I did is I went to Wikipedia. And well, here's what I pulled a bunch of his movies that he had adapted from films and watched, adapted from books or from other sources, and watched them, things I hadn't seen in a long time. So I watched Stand By Me, which is based on Stephen King's novella The Body. I read A Few Good Men, which is based on the play. I watched the movie, I should say. I watched Misery, based on Stephen King's book of the same name. And so I watched the movies, then I went to Wikipedia and I looked up the movies, and in Wikipedia, they go into detail about production, and they talk about everything that was changed from the book or from the play or how Rob decided to do this instead of that. And son of a gun, if every single solitary change he made didn't make it better, the changes he made it better than the source material. You know, Stephen King, when Stephen King saw The Body, you know, there is a scene, I think it's a scene where Gordy's the one who has the gun. I forget how it differs from the book, but Stephen King goes, that's, you know, I wish I'd have thought of that. If I'd have thought of that, I'd have written that. And so that made me completely, you know, not that I wasn't relaxed before, but it made me less protective about everything. He put me in 2 movies. You know, he put me in The Bucket List, which was a complete and total fluke. We're having a meeting one day at Warner Brothers over Genuine, and I asked him, you know, I go, well, here we're usually at Castle Rock as well, you know, we're making a movie, and he goes through the whole story, of Bucket List. And I go, oh, okay, meeting's over. I go, that sounds good, good luck with the movie. And I'm getting out of my chair, and my ass is half out of the chair, and I go, well, if Morgan Freeman needs a son, call me. And he looks at Alan Greisman, his partner, and goes, he's the right age. And he goes, yeah, he is. And I was just joking. And he goes, want to do it? And I go, well, do you want me to read or audition? He goes, nah. I go, fine, I'll do it for a hot lunch. He goes, well, we can't afford to give you a hot lunch. It's not a huge budget. I go, I don't care. And it was just amazing. It was just absolutely amazing. And he was so incredibly down to earth, you know. I remember we had a meeting. We had he had the whole script. He had the whole cast, rather, for a meeting at Warner Brothers around a great, big, gigantic table. Whether you had one line in the movie or whether you were starred, Nicholson was there and Freeman were there, and he had us all be in the room together and do a reading. That's not something that's generally done, especially at day players, people coming in doing one line. And he wanted us to be able to say that we were able to meet Nicholson and meet Freeman. And he goes, you're in a movie with these guys. And he had us all go around the table, say our name and what we were planning. And he starts by saying, I'm Ron Reiner, former meathead. That's how he introduces himself. And we go around the table. And so after we read, we're leaving, and he comes up and puts his arm around me, and he goes, thank you for being here. He goes, I'm so happy that you're here and happy you're being a part of this. Thank you. And I'm going, thank me? What? You're thanking me? So that was my first time in a movie with him. The second time he put me in Spinal Tap, and that was Michelle's doing. Michele became his producing partner, and when we were working on Genuine, which we have been doing, we were working on Genuine for Warner's. They were looking for, I think I might have mentioned that, you know, if they had anything in Spinal Tap, just a walk on, or if I could get to be a roadie or something, I'd love to just say I was in it, you know. And I got a call. I think it was Michelle's idea. They needed a character. And I probably shouldn't go into this because it didn't make it into the movie, so I'm not going to talk about it, I don't think, in detail. But they had me audition. And the way that the Spinal Tap movies are is there's no script, that Christopher Guest and Rob would write an outline. So just scene by scene by scene. And in this scene, it takes place in a cafe, and make sure that you mention at some point that you have a duck at home, because the duck has something to do with the plot, but the rest of it, ad lib. And that's what happened. And there was a 10-page outline. So he had me audition I auditioned over Zoom with Rob, with Harry Shearer, with Christopher Guest, with Michael McKean, and we it was all done over Zoom. And 15 minutes later, they called me and said, "You want to do it?" And I said, "Yeah." So I go to New Orleans and I shoot the thing with them, and I shot the scene, and I couldn't see him. He was in another room watching on a monitor, he and Michelle, and he comes out laughing. He goes, cut, and comes out laughing after, and just said it was great. Because we had chemistry, and I was scared to death because these guys come to find out they'd been, with Rob, had been doing improv together since like 1966. And here I come, and it's like I'm supposed to hold my own with these guys, and they did. They were laughing, and Rob's laughing. And he goes, I got exactly what I need. He goes, but I want you to do it one more time because I want to hear what's going to come out of your mouth next. So he goes back, roll again. We go through it again, completely different ad-libs, same situation. He comes out laughing again. And he said, I got everything I need. And he puts his arm around me and has the cast and the crew give me a round of applause. And that is my last memory of being with him in person, that he had the cast and the crew of that picture give me a round of applause. That's the last time we saw him. And he calls me after he got done shooting in New Orleans. I was just there like 2 days and was looking at the footage and said it came out great, and the scene's really, really funny. Then I get a call about a month and a half later, because what he had to do was go through frame by frame by frame by frame by frame. And he goes, I got to murder my darlings because I love this scene, but it just doesn't work narratively. So as much as I hate to do it, I got to cut it. Because what people don't realize with the Spinal Tap movies, he shot 100 hours of footage and then had to cut it down to 83 minutes. But the first movie, he said, the first movie he got, his first cut was 8.5 hours, but he got it down, to 83 minutes. So, that's, it was just an amazing experience, The last time I saw Michelle too was in New Orleans. She came out with him, and when he got me a round of applause, and she goes, "Let's take a picture." And there's a picture that I have posted that I was asked not to post before the picture came out. It's the first time I've shown it to anybody, but I did post that last night. And she had us, all get together, me and Spinal Tap and Rob, and she took that picture, and I will treasure that photo for the rest of my life. But to sum up, I said I know I'm babbling and I got a million stories to tell. There's so many things that are going through my head, but I'm not. Please don't call me and don't stick a mic in my face because I'm not talking to anybody else. I'm not. I'm just doing this. The best way that I can describe Rob Reiner is like this. I want you right now to think of the nicest person you ever met. Okay, just think of the nicest person who's a sincere, good, honorable person with integrity, who's nice, who's kind, excuse my dog, who's nice, who's kind, who cares about other people, who when he says something, he is not full of crap, but you can believe what it is that they say. Think of that person, the person who meets that standard in your life, or the person who you were fortunate enough to come across. And when I think of that person died last night. So, anyway, that's, I guess for now, that's all I got to say. I'm not going to say for now, that's pretty much all I got to say. I could go on for hours and tell you stories, but, it's surreal. It's just absolutely surreal. But I'm going to honor him this week by having a movie marathon. I'm going to watch When Harry Met Sally. I'm going to watch Misery. I'm going to watch The Princess Bride. I'm going to watch The Sure Thing. I'm going to watch Stand By Me. I'm going to watch The Bucket List. I'm going to have a movie marathon. That's how I'm going to honor him this week. I'm going to honor him by always remembering to be kind, always remembering to do my best work, the best work that's possible. If it's possible to make it better even a little bit, I'm going to make it better even a little bit. And to remember to fight for those who don't have the voices to fight for themselves, or the platforms or the abilities to fight on their own, because that's another thing that he did with his activism. So, and Michele, I'm going to honor Michele by being exactly like she was, and that is tough, not taking any crap, sitting with a broken foot through an hour of a one-man show. But most importantly, Michele did not suffer fools. She did not suffer fools. And that is how I will honor her. So, thanks for listening to me ramble. And again, if you're in the media, please just stop blowing on my phone. I don't want to talk to anybody.